Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Masked Review. Now, recently I was lucky enough to go and see Suzume in cinemas by Makoto Shinkai. Now, I've personally been on edge with Makoto Shinkai as I've watched Your Name, Weathering With You, and 5 centimeters per second, and this was the 4th film I watched of his. It gave me an idea of turning this into a kind of 4-part series where I would talk about every Makoto Shinkai film I've watched and compare them, see where they rank, and then give my overall view of Makoto Shinkai as a director, an anime movie director. Do I believe that he's a one-hit wonder? Do I believe that he's a bit shaky? Do I believe that he's a masterful writer? Or somewhere in between there, who knows? And today I'd like to talk about Suzume. There'll be a spoiler-free review at the end of the video. This obviously will go through a lot of spoilers. It'll be a short rundown of it. I'll leave a timestamp in the video, or I'll leave it up here somewhere. It just so those who haven't watched it yet and are thinking of watching it and just want a short little review with no spoilers, it's there for you. First, let me talk about the negatives. It's what most people are here for. First thing about it, the pacing was off. Throughout many times I was watching the film, I thought it was over. When they was putting the worm to bed, I was like, okay, we're reaching the climax. Little did I know there was 40 minutes odd left of the film. The film also started a bit rash. It felt like they put an entire first episode of a TV series, like a 20-minute first episode, into a 5 to 10 minute constraint. Everything was going fast. We just met these characters, then they're doing this, then they're doing that, then they've got to close this thing that we know nothing about, and then it's not really explained until a lot later, like 30 minutes into the movie. And time-wise, it was a bit all over the place. But that makes sense when it comes to the length of the movie, which ended up being roughly 2 hours, 10 minutes. But I feel like other things could have been cut for a better opening. The film could have been infinitely shorter, if you ask me. I felt there was many. We had too long of Suzume and the chair. Suzume and the chair were dealing with all the worms. And it is necessary to do that, but I think maybe there was too much of it. For how long of a movie there was, these scenes where they're doing the same thing repeatedly for what felt like 40 minutes, it may have been less, but it felt like 40 minutes of them going to new location. Worm appears, they stop the door, close the door, lock it, the worm's dealt with, right? It was a lot of that, but it felt like that was unnecessary. We didn't even have the climax when the chair sacrificed itself to be a keystone to stop the worm from escaping. That wasn't even the finale. It could have been shorter. However, I understand why it was long. It was long because if that wasn't there, the sacrifice of the chair and the eventual retrieval of the chair and Suzume's intentions to bring back the chair wouldn't have meant as much. Because we wouldn't have seen the connection between Suzume and the chair. We wouldn't have seen that connection. We would have never felt the connection. Which I understand why it was so long. It was to, instead of making it like a day or two together, and then she grows this connection to him, they made it like a week, which makes sense. You will grow more attached to someone if you're with them for a week in comparison to a few days. But this is anime, and a lot of us are willing to make exceptions for stuff like this, for mild inconveniences, if it makes the plot better and more convenient. Now, obviously I did not personally understand the movie very well. A lot of it was down to a lack of my knowledge. It's not a knock on the film. I do not personally understand enough about the Japanese god culture, like especially the 2 cats. But I know it's of Japanese god culture, I believe, because I've seen it in another anime a while ago, but it was with dogs instead, Gintama. So that one's on me. That isn't the movie's fault. The movie isn't made for a Western audience. It's just something that I found wrong with the film personally. It was hard to understand due to being a Westerner, not understanding Japanese culture, which is to be expected when you go to a Japanese film. The auntie scene where she's yelling at her, and we see the other cat god, I guess, possessing her. If you're wondering why I sound so confused, it's because the scene made no sense. She yells at Suzume, saying she wished she never looked after her, or something along those lines. And then it turned out she was controlled by the cat spirit. And we have this pointless argument. It's an utterly pointless argument that adds nothing other than a sense of development, in quotation marks, between Suzume and the auntie. But there was no need for it. The auntie wasn't an important character. She appeared a small bit at the beginning of the film, a little bit at the end. She wasn't important. Was never important to the plot. Yet we try and make her important by creating this fight between the two, where she was apparently controlled, but knew everything she said, and it really made no sense, because the cat was also the cat god who was supposed to be helping Suzume, but in causing that argument, it did the total opposite of helping Suzume. It just made no sense, and you've got to understand where I'm coming from, right? In a film that's pretty well written, it's got some brilliant storytelling, and I was really intrigued, but this threw me off, because it was pointless. It was utterly pointless, and it was one of the things that really brought the film down in its final 30 minutes, where, keep in mind, a lot of people, including me, was kind of waiting for the end just for it to go on for like another 30-40 minutes, and that really brought it down even more. It's not even a personal nitpick, it's a genuine issue with the movie, and I think the film would be infinitely better if they just removed that. I was happy with the final 30-40 minutes. I think the final 30-40 minutes was good, right? It gave you the calmness of what a film like Your Name had. Your Name had the moment with Taki and his two mates going around to Japan trying to find Mitsuha. And that was a calm, relaxing thing, because you had that small little adventure to get to know the friends. And they tried to do the same here, right? And that's fine. I like that sort of stuff. But they did it so wrong with the argument. It just ruined it. It ruined it completely. I only have one more thing to nitpick, but it is literally a nitpick. It's nothing big. In comparison to the other Makoto Shinkai films, the film lacked in its musical aspect. Makoto Shinkai, his films are known for their brilliant music. You look at Your Name, it's one of the best soundtracks I've seen in my entire life. Weathering With You has a brilliant soundtrack with brilliant songs. Even 5 centimeters per second, which is one of his earliest works, has brilliant music. Whilst this, he had one song that brought everyone in through the trailer. The song was brilliant. It's got over 2 million plays on YouTube, even more on Spotify. And they rarely use it. They rarely use any music with words in, which I think was a disappointment. I think if they used more songs with words in like they'd done before with Your Name's Zen Zen Zens, Sparkle, Nande Manaya, you know, they have all these songs. It works perfectly. They just didn't do it, which I get, right? You want to take a different approach. You want to take this more mystical approach, as this one had a lot more mystical elements than the others, right? But I don't know, I was just a bit disappointed after watching the others to see the soundtrack was not as good, personally. But once again, that's a nitpick. Wouldn't knock the film because of it. On to the good. Suzume's a good character. First things first, Suzume's a well-written character. Not the best main character out of all of them, but I think her interactions with the chair really made her an interesting character. Her interactions in general with random people she meets, the way she talks, you know, she didn't really have much going on. She wasn't struggle-ridden, apart from obviously her mother's death, which obviously is a massive struggle. When you're young, you don't really see that, but at the same time, we didn't really see that until towards the end of the movie, and kind of hints towards it at the beginning. We didn't see her struggle over it, though, which is why it's hard to critique her on that character trait. But you get the point. You know, she's well written, a better character than I've seen before in a lot of other shows. She's not bland by any means, she's fun to watch, and yeah, really just added some joy to the show. And I guess, writing-wise, it was brilliant. I think the use of mystical elements in this one was good. the overuse per se was actually a good use. It was a brilliant overuse. Well written film by him. He's done better works in my eyes, but it was well written. And one thing, once again, can't knock it for is its animation. Its animation is genuinely perfect. He has the same animation studio for every film, right? And with that animation studio, the films get better and better. It's visually stunning, the backgrounds, and looking at the film alone is enough to make you think that it is brilliant. I've spoken on Suzume, so this will now be the spoiler-free review aspect. It will be a short one, so please stick around if you've already watched the full review. Overall, Suzume is a well-written show. I think it's got some issues 100%, as every show does. I think its pacing is quite poor, and there's some scenes feel unnecessary. However, there's a reason they are there, so I'm willing to meet eye to eye with the creator and get why he put them in there. Some scenes do also really just feel unnecessary in general, and I'm not willing to see eye to eye with him on. Once again, visually stunning. As always, it's a Makoto Shinkai film. Music could be better, personally, in my personal opinion. However, that doesn't affect the writing of the show, or the writing of the film, and all the work that was put into it, voice acting wise, and everything. It was stunning. 100% would recommend, and personally, I would rank it an 8 out of 10. Now, on my ranking of the list, I'd give it top place of the Mir. I haven't reviewed any of the others, so it stands right now, it's top place, but we'll see. If you want to see me review the rest of them, please subscribe, keep up to date, it helps the channel grow. And yeah, see ya.